George Washington is the most well-known president of the United States, but how much do you really know about him? According to MountVernon.org, Washington served from 1789 to 1797. He succeeded the previous failed government of the Articles of Confederation, and he passed 13 key legislations throughout his presidency. I've done a lot of research over the past 2 weeks for this speech, and I'd like to present to you some of the more important decisions that he made throughout his presidency and the legacy he had on the future of our government. Some of the more important decisions that I found that he made were the whiskey tax and the 2 slave-related laws that he passed. America at 1789 was a very divided country on slavery. As you can see here, there's a pretty big divide between states that thought that we should have slavery legal and those that thought slavery should be illegal. 2 laws that Washington passed on slavery were the Fugitive Slave Act and the Slave Trade Act. The Fugitive Slave Act made it illegal for people to help escaping slaves and made it easier for slave owners to recapture these slaves. The Slave Trade Act made it illegal for American ships to participate in the Atlantic slave trade. These 2 acts are competing in their ideologies, one pro-slavery, one anti-slavery. I think the reason he passed these 2 were to sort of compromise between the 2 competing ideologies, as he wanted the country to still grow, but he also wanted it to remain together, unified. He also wanted to expand the federal government's power, and this is noted in the whiskey tax that he passed, which resulted in the Whiskey Rebellion. This whiskey tax affected smaller producers of whiskey, and they did not like the extra taxes upon them. As you can see here, the poorer whiskey producers are over here, and these are federal troops. The federal government did not like this rebellion, and they responded by sending in the army and federal troops, and they were actually able to put down the rebellion. This is very important, as the previous government was not actually able to enforce their laws, and most people didn't end up paying their taxes, which eventually led to the collapse of that government. This sort of failure of a rebellion showed the power of the new government and how they weren't going to be like the old one. Now that I've talked about some of the more important laws and decisions that Washington made, I want to discuss the legacy he had on our country. One of the important ones is Washington only served 2 terms as president, and up until World War II and FDR's presidency, every other president only served 2 terms as well. There wasn't actually a law or anything that prevented them from doing it, they just followed Washington's lead. After FDR's 4th term and death, Congress passed the 22nd Amendment, which made it illegal for presidents to serve more than 2 terms. And here's the amendment. I'm not sure how well you can see this. 2 other important things that he did were Washington started the tradition of a presidential cabinet and an inaugural speech. The presidential cabinet was mainly used for certain departments of the government that are overseen by different people other than the president, and they report to the president. He started this tradition because it would be easier to make his job easier. This tradition is carried on today because it's a very essential role for our presidents to dictate. Another one is the inaugural address, which here is Washington's first inauguration as president. I believe the inaugural address is very important for presidents to do, as it sort of lets the public know what the president plans to do in his 4 years as president, and it helps sort of set the tone for his presidency. I feel like Washington was a very important president to have due to his his compromises as president and the laws that he passed, it showed that he was a very strong president who wanted to keep our country together and to increase the power of the federal government so it doesn't fail like the previous one. The precedents that he set, such as the formation of a cabinet and the inaugural address, are very important because they help the president perform his job more efficiently, and it also lets the public be reassured by the president on what his goals are going to be. So I feel like Washington was a very important president for us to have, as our country is still around today, and I think he did a great job.